The free man knows how to dream and how to invent his own life. The philosopher Martin Gray said that. The first part of Gray's quote I interpret as looking within yourself and imagining the greatest things you'll ever do. The second part of the quote, knowing how to invent life, I interpret as the practical side of the equation. It's about the plan you must develop to make the dream possible. It's the preparation and work that have to be done to make it come true. Because dreams don't get made overnight. I started karate when I was 7 years old. It took almost 2 decades of constant practice and dedication to get a shot at the title. 20 years. And to be perfectly honest with you, most of the time I had no real idea exactly where I was going. At first, I thought I was going to be a wrestler like Hulk Hogan. One day, when you were 9, I found you watching wrestling on television, my mother recalls. You turned to me and said, "One day, there'll be a Bahome Georges." It really freaked me out when I think of that. This is Wright Brennan with Lost in the Midlands, brought to you by C. Wright Roofing. And today I am here with a serial entrepreneur, a coach and mentor, former competitive MMA fighter, freaking awesome guy, Mr. Tim Goodwin. Thanks for hanging out today, man.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's a really cool reading by George St. Pierre that we talked about. I know that you said you had that book at some point in time and that he was some sort of influence in your career.
Yes.
And aspiration. And you can tell just from that little quote that from a young age, he was thinking about fighting. Is that something that kind of resonates with you from a young age?
Yeah, it does. I didn't really consider fighting as a serious avenue. As a kid, I really was interested in martial arts, but fighting, I guess the competitive side of it wasn't something I really seriously considered until I was moving more towards adulthood. As a kid, I watched the UFC, watched anything martial arts related, and I enjoyed it, but I never thought that it would be me inside of the cage actually doing it.
Yeah, that is interesting. And you probably kind of grew up watching that whole sport grow. I mean, it really has grown a lot throughout your lifetime.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. I actually watched a recap kind of flashback. It was like this year in the UFC, and it showed like 1994, like the second year they were around. And the sport was completely different than what it is now. The lack of weight classes, lack of rules, just a completely different feel and vibe of it. It was a huge difference looking at what I watched when I was probably maybe 11 years old compared to what the sport looks like now and how professional it is in the modern era.
Yeah, I could see that. That is interesting insight coming from the professional, knowing what's going on. You mentioned when you were 11. Let's talk a little bit about your beginnings, like where you're born and raised. Are you from this area?
Yeah, I was born in New Mexico. My father was in the Air Force, but I grew up here in the Columbia area. My parents moved back here when I was about 3 years old, and I was here throughout childhood. I went off to college up in North Carolina. I wrestled at Appalachian State University, and then once I finished up in college, I moved back down here to work, and then that's when I found mixed martial arts, and then one thing led to another, and moved in the fighting realm and went from there.
Yeah, well, and the rest is history, as they say. And in your days wrestling at App State, I mean, is that where you kind of began to love the grappling and just the competitive nature of the sport?
Yeah, grappling had always been kind of interesting to me. It's funny, kind of the quote you read from George St. Pierre, I guess, where he grew up watching like professional wrestling, like Hulk Hogan and those guys, and that's actually what I grew up watching as a kid. I watched that with my dad a whole lot. And the grappling side of it, like the submission holds, things like that, always kind of stood out to me. And that was, I think, what kind of spurred me as far as getting started with the wrestling team in high school. And then towards the end of college, I started taking an interest in jiu-jitsu. I started watching the UFC a little bit more seriously at that point. And I kind of had it set in my head that once I was done up there, moving back down here, I would find a place to train at as far as jiu-jitsu. And it just so happened that I started training jiu-jitsu, but also started training striking arts like Muay Thai as well, too. And then fighting, just kind of, things just kind of, like they say, one thing led to another, and there we go. So.
Yeah, that is interesting, and that's your part of your fight journey. I'm also interested in your entrepreneurial journey. You guys have, TnT, the gym. You're also operating Dynamite Kids After School program, Cayce's Best After School program. You guys got a lot of operations going on.
Yes.
So I want to hear a little bit about that journey. At some point, you went from the guy in the cage to the guy behind the desk.
Yeah. I originally had no intent on running a martial arts business or anything like that.
Yeah.
I worked in different fields. I kind of did some work as like a personal trainer. I used to lead older adult senior exercise classes, different things like that, fitness boot camps. Yeah. And I actually met my wife, Tamaya, at one of the places I was working at, and she was actually at rec center running karate classes with her family. And as her family started to kind of shift away from the martial arts side of things, I started seeing what she was doing in the business, and I started just like helping out and kind of doing a little research of my own, and we just find little bits of information here and there. And I started gradually helping more and more, and as the family kind of moved in different directions, I kind of stepped in a little bit more, and then we took what they had, we kind of rebuilt it, rebranded it. We started with TnT, and after a couple of years of running TnT, we were able to basically go full-time with it.
Yeah.
I was working as a firefighter at one point, and once TnT got to a point where it was able to sustain our family, I ended up being in a position to leave that behind. And then once COVID hit, we had some challenges with that, so we decided to get another business started that would be more essential. That way we wouldn't get shut down. So then Cayce's Best After School was created at that point. And then earlier this year, we opened up Dynamite Kids After School and Summer Camp over in the Irmo, Lake Murray area.
And the after-school programs and the gym all kind of have, some overlap here. The gym, I know you guys have some really awesome kids programs for martial arts. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on in the gym?
Yeah, so for our kids program, we have what's essentially a kids mixed martial arts program. We have a full team of instructors. One of the best things about the kids program is now that we've been open for some time now, we're starting to see where some participants in the program are starting to kind of grow into instructors. Just a few years ago, we actually hired on our first instructors that came up through the program. We hired on two twin sisters. They started with us when they were, I believe, 8 or 9 years old. We hired them when they were 14, and then they've been working for us. They just turned 17 now, and they both teach kickboxing classes. They teach kids classes. They both have competed in kickboxing, karate, jiu-jitsu, and it's been great seeing them kind of grow up through the program, and basically they help to kind of build that culture so that they understand how things run at TnT. They set a great example, so the kids coming up kind of see them as a great example. And it also kind of illustrates, I believe, the success of the program is that it's in a position to help to build kids up to that point to where they can turn around and then they can give back to the next generation of kids as well, too. And it's really cool to see now with them working with my own kids in the program, teaching my son, teaching my daughter, and teaching those classes.
Yeah, and proof that you guys have an awesome culture in there. When the students become the teachers, you know that you guys are on the right track. So that is really cool. And you said they're teaching your kids now, so your kids are coming up through the ranks.
Yeah, I've got my son is 6. He's been training since he was 4 years old. He's done a couple jiu-jitsu tournaments. He's very excited about martial arts. Wakes up wanting to spar and fight and wrestle every day. If you ask him when he grows up, he wants to be a fighter, just like I was. My daughter, she trains. She's not as into it, but she still does a couple classes a week. She has a lot of fun with it, and she balances that with some ballet classes as well too. So, but yeah, the whole family is training. My wife's on the mat; she trains as well too. It's a family affair.
That is super cool. And with the after school program, I mean, I imagine some of the kids that are taking the martial arts classes now have an opportunity to go and be a part of that program. Is that a little bit how it works, or?
Yeah, so with the after-school programs, they do offer martial arts classes like built in as part of their regular schedule. The kids get 2 martial arts classes a week. Then they have other indoor sports like either dance or tumbling, different arts and crafts activities, things like that. But they do get to participate in the martial arts. And then for parents who want their kids to get, I guess, more in-depth training, they can also dual enroll between Cayce's Best and TnT. So we have that option to where they can get even more training if the child has that interest in it.
Well, you've got, I guess this is like 3 businesses now. You've got multiple locations. How are you juggling all this stuff? You got 2 kids. I mean, life's got to have a pretty tight schedule for you.
Yeah, time management, and also just having a spouse that's also involved, having my wife Tamaya, and seeing the work that she puts in as well too. She on a daily basis might rotate between any one of the different locations, kind of checking in on the staff, making sure things are running smoothly, and then even outside of that, just having a really strong team all around, having a great director, great staff members at the after-school locations, having a really strong team of instructors, great manager at TnT. Just having a really strong team behind us helps take a little bit of the load off of our shoulders and make things run a bit smoother.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you guys are setting like the example for how a family business should operate as a team. You guys are not just operating the family unit, but this large business as well. So kudos to you guys. With the martial arts program in the adult arena, what opportunities are there for, let's say, somebody who hasn't had experience in MMA, but they've seen it and like, that's cool?
Yeah, I would say that's probably the majority of the people that come to train with us have not had any prior training, and usually it's something that somehow piqued their interest, whether they saw a UFC fight on TV or maybe a video on Instagram or Facebook, or just the idea popped in their head, or maybe they saw it like, hey, this would be a cool workout. Yeah. That would be probably the majority of the adults that come to us, and they may not have any aspirations as far as like fighting or competing, but the training is great for lots of other reasons. It's a really good workout. Some people do it more so for just like the mental health side of things. It's really a great way to kind of like clear your head after a long day, kind of blow off some steam, just be around good people. The community aspect is huge. I see a lot of people that come in, and after they've been training for a while, I start noticing like bonds will form. They'll start making friends that they have met at TnT. And you'll see people to where they hang out outside of the training. They'll come in and train, but they might also go out and go grab pizza afterwards. Yep. Sometimes we'll do social events where we go out somewhere to watch a UFC fight. But I see the strong community as one of the biggest benefits as well too. So there's the physical aspect, the mental aspect, and also the social aspect for people.
Yeah, wow, really hitting a lot of different areas. And those people that are coming in that don't know much. I mean, I imagine y'all must have like, all right, there's a beginner's program. This is the beginning. And then you got probably guys in there who are, extremely well-trained. And there's the extremely well-trained programs. That kind of how you mix it up a little bit?
Yeah, we have for each program, we kind of have a fundamentals level program for people to start with. So for jiu-jitsu, we have a white belt only class. That way they can come in and kind of ease their way onto the mats, kind of learn some of the basics and fundamentals and train with other people that are kind of at that more beginner experience level. And then they can, from there, transition up to the all levels classes. And then same thing for kickboxing. We have a fundamentals program where they get to learn all the basics and kind of ease their way in. It's a non-contact program, but they're working like partner drills, working on their footwork, basic punches, things like that. And then for the people who want to go and take the next step, they can also move up to our higher level programs and get more sparring and more contact-based training from there.
Those individuals who are making a lot of progress, I know you guys do have some people in there who are fighting competitively and stuff. How do you nurture those fighters? Like if you see somebody coming along like this guy's got some talent, I mean, is there a process you go through, or you kind of help guide them in the direction of let's sign up for a fight?
Yeah, so a lot of times it's more based off the person. So I will, of course, if someone stands out, I'll talk to them and see what their goals are. But usually when they first come in, I try and figure out why they're training, what the end goal is, what they would like to do with their training. And a lot of times people that have that competitive mindset will usually let us know kind of early on, so we'll kind of keep an eye out for them. But usually starting them off in the fundamentals, but then moving them up into the full MMA program from that point on. Once they get ready, usually trying to find different avenues of competition that lead them towards full MMA. So they may start off by doing just a basic like jiu-jitsu tournament. Yeah. They may start with some point kickboxing tournaments and then eventually move to full contact kickboxing and then eventually move to amateur MMA. And then for those who are ready to take that next step, then eventually up to professional MMA.
Okay. And so you must have somebody who's on the track for a pro debut.
Yeah, we have numerous fighters in the gym. Got some guys getting ready to fight next month in some amateur bouts. We have one of our fighters who he recently won a championship belt here in Columbia. Brandon Holmes, he's currently undefeated in MMA.
Wow.
Also has a good bit of kickboxing bouts under his belt. He recently won the Conflict MMA middleweight title back in May here in town.
Yeah.
And we've been searching to try and get maybe one more amateur fight, but more than likely he'll be making that jump to the pro level sometime before the end of this year.
Awesome. Well, maybe one thing you could tell us a little bit about, somebody out there who's listening who has had some like competitive, who is a competitor and maybe they are trained. What type of coaches would somebody like that who's interested in coming on, are the coaches that you have a degree of, do they have like some sort of belt degree or, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the strongest areas we have is that we have a very experienced group of coaches at TnT. Of course, myself, I've wrestled in college. I've also coached college wrestling. I've got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I won a world championship in jiu-jitsu a couple years ago. And of course, I fought for 10 years as a professional, so I've got a good bit of experience. I've seen a lot, done a lot, and I can help people kind of, navigate through those waters as far as fighting. But even outside of myself, I have other coaches that step in and fill different roles. My own personal coach that I worked with when I was coming up as far as my striking, my kickboxing, his name is Sam King. He's actually one of our coaches at the gym as well, too. So they get to learn from the same person that I learned from as I was coming up. So he's there helping to coach the fighters, helping to corner them in their fights. Also, we have a couple other coaches that help out as well, too. One of our fighters actually works for the gym full-time, Caleb Lang. So he's getting ready for a fight next month, but he also works full-time at the gym. He's in charge of our white belt fundamentals program. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got about a decade of training. He's had some fights under his belt before. And then we have another brown belt at the gym, Dale. He's been training for about a decade or so. He's competed in jiu-jitsu. He's got a great mind for the grappling side of things. So we've got a very solid coaching base. We also have Coach Jonathan. He runs our wrestling program. So he was a Division II national qualifier in college. So we have pretty much every area covered as far as our striking, our wrestling, our jiu-jitsu, and then also just putting MMA together as a whole too.
Yeah, top notch. Top notch. I have a couple questions for you about just advice you could give somebody. One is somebody who wants to become a fighter and is thinking about taking that path, maybe a similar path that you were on. What advice would you give to that individual?
I would say the number one thing would be to find a coach and find a coach that you believe in. That was the biggest thing for me when I was fighting, was having great coaches around me and trusting my coaches. Knowing that when I go in for a workout that I don't have to overthink or second guess different aspects of the training. I can go in there and if I trust the coach, I can just do what they say, follow behind everything, put the effort in, and everything works itself out. So finding a great coach / mentor and just having a really coachable attitude and mentality. I think that's the number one thing.
Awesome. Great advice. And then advice for somebody who's going to go out on their own as an entrepreneur. What advice would you have in that arena?
Even on that side, it runs kind of similar. I would say finding great mentors, finding people who have done what you're hoping to do, seeking out the knowledge, and also being willing to put the work in, and also having a mentality where you understand that everything won't always go in the perfect direction, and being willing to, I guess, in some ways, be a little bit stubborn and push through those hard times and just get through adversity. Because in business, things don't always run perfectly, but as long as you keep putting the work in, you put yourself around the right people, you can really make some big things happen.
Heck yeah, wise words. Where can we find you?
On Instagram at @TimGoodwin_TnT. Also, TnT Martial Arts, you can find us on Instagram as well, at TnT Columbia. Cayce's Best is going to be at Cayce's Best_TnT, and then Dynamite Kids is going to be at Dynamite Kids_TnT. You can also find us on the web, www.tntcolumbia.com.
Fantastic. Hey, Tim, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate you.
All right, thanks for having me.